Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to follow the honourable member for North Norfolk. Can I refer to the register of members' interests and my position as chair of the PCS parliamentary group? Now, Mr. Speaker, there's a slight disagreement with myself and two Labour members as to what is the best description or the best Game of Thrones characters to compare the government. Can I offer the Lannister family within the Game of Thrones? I think that's perhaps the most accurate description that describes the current Conservative Party predicament. For the government, they are the Lannisters, and the Conservative Party are the rest of King's Landing. Because like the Lannisters, this government is being overrun by zealots and fanatics. Zealots and fanatics who are ensuring that the government can't get things done. Zealots and fanatics who are more interested in purity. Mr. Speaker, I will leave it to others to decide and identify the high sparrow. Although it would be fair to say this afternoon there appeared to be more than one candidate for that post. Mr. Speaker, I think the current circumstances, the current season of the Game of Thrones is uncanny in comparison with the current government. Mr. Speaker, the other thought that comes to mind in this programme for government is that it fails to address the many problems and major issues that society is facing. There is nothing for those who regularly require the services of a food bank. Food banks being the largest growth industry in the United Kingdom, and who would have thought we would be in an era where that is the case. Mr. Speaker, where is the legislation to crack down on the abuse of companies not complying with paying the national minimum wage? And how does that square with the madness of closing 90% of HMRC offices and making HMRC staff redundant? Because we now know through the National Audit Office that some 209,000 people in the last year have not been paid the national minimum wage. That is a doubling of those who are not being paid proper wages. And we also know that those who are owed arrears in respect of payment of the national minimum wage is now 58,000 compared to 26,000 in the previous year. Mr. Speaker, where is the legislation to abolish employment tribunal fees? Tribunal fees that are blocking access to justice for many workers. Tribunal fees that are so great and so expensive that people won't pursue their claims because the fee is larger than the wages that they're owed. And where is the legislation to aggressively go for tax avoidance? We now know through written answers to questions that there are some 3,765 workers in the Department of Work and Pensions chasing benefit fraud, alleged benefit fraud of £1.2 billion. And in HMRC there are 320 employees chasing tax avoidance of £70 billion. Just imagine if there was more investment in HMRC to go for tax avoidance, just how much money that could bring. Mr. Speaker, I also want to raise the issue of public sector workers who are having to take an effective pay cut. Because in the last year many have been paid a 1% increase in wages, but I've seen that go away with a 1.4% increase in national insurance contributions. That is an effective cut for many public sector workers, and the government do not suggest anything to deal with that, or anything indeed to deal with the real, genuine wealth creators. That's the low-paid, long hours workers who keep the economic wheels turning. Mr. Speaker, it's continued to be an unacceptable part of the government's programme to take the hindmost approach to social security and pursuing sanctions and a sanctions regime. But it goes even further, because I now know through constituents that they're having to pay an expensive amount of money telephoning and pursuing claims to the Department of Work and Pensions. There is a free helpline to make a claim, but if there's a mistake, if someone hasn't received their money, which happened to a constituent of mine recently, telephone call costs £9 to pursue that claim. Someone who has not been paid any money, who is waiting for money to go into that bank account, that is completely unacceptable, and I'm asking the government to do something about that in the coming year. Mr. Speaker, I want to raise the very important issue of industrial relations within the public services, and particularly the attitude of the UK government. It keeps viewing the trade union movement as the enemy. The trade unions are being ignored when they should be listened to. ignored when government departments are making announcements, as was the case in the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills when it decided to close its Sheffield office. Trade unions being locked out of employee management one-to-one meetings to discuss an employee's future, as is the case in Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Mr Speaker, these actions will only stir up resentment towards the government from trade unions and public sector workers. Public sector workers, Mr Speaker, who often go way beyond their job descriptions to ensure the delivery of public services. The programme for government does not address the major challenges affecting our society. And I hope, Mr Speaker, the government will take cognizance of early day motion 47 in my name, which is calling for a full public inquiry into the scandal of blacklisting in the construction industry. And I want to praise the trade unions and the Blacklist Support Group for pursuing employers in court recently on that very issue. Mr Speaker, if there's not a change in attitude from the government, if the government don't invest in public services, if it decides against delivering what I believe should be world-class public services with motivated staff, it will only cost more in the long run. And the biggest casualty of cuts will be public services themselves, and there'll be further strain be put upon them. It will then be passed on to another generation to build an equal society without poverty. Mr Speaker, in the coming year I pledge to my constituents to pursue the major issues and problems we need to face as a society. I fear the government are not up to that task while they pursue economic illiteracy. Thank you.